It's primary and secondary time. I guess it's episode 166. We're going to talk about revolvers. There's a lot of bias against revolvers, so I named this Revolver Bias. I'm your host, Matt Landfair. This is going to be a cool discussion. This has been long overdue. Lee specifically has been discussing wanting to do this episode. There's a lot of good qualities to revolvers. There are a lot of good options. Like with everything, it's going to require some training for proficiency. So, in my opinion, and we're going to get into this, probably people shouldn't be throwing out revolvers as a bad idea right off the bat. You might need to have some consideration. And yes, it is going to take some training. But yeah, I've got a great panelist to discuss this. There might be a little bit of trolling going on, which is perfectly fine. It's enjoyable. But yeah, this is going to be a good show. We do have a bunch of episodes that are already planned out. We have a mouse gun episode coming up. We have a gun nerds. As a matter of fact, we have two gun nerds coming up. One, I talked to Dugan Ashley yesterday, and he's going to join us. As a matter of fact, Caleb here is going to join us too for that one. That's going to be the Dream Gun, Machine Gun, Suppressor episode, Dream Designs, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's going to be a good time. That's coming up. I don't think we're going to have I don't think I have time to do an open mic in the next month. So, oh well. Big thank you to our sponsor, Facts on Firearms. If you go to factsonfirearms.com, you can select from a very good selection of pistol barrels, different finishes, calibers, models, all that kind of stuff, as well as AR-15 barrels, different gas systems, gas lengths, profiles, and all that kind of stuff. Additionally, filsterholsters.com. John is a friend. We're working on some stuff. I'm excited. That's all I can say. And it's actually been something for a while, so I'm excited. He's a good guy. For the couple times he's been on the podcast, and when I interviewed him individually, talking about design, it's really cool to hear how he thinks and how he's analyzing things and applying it to gear. So Filster has some great holsters, some very streamlined holsters that make a lot of sense. On top of that, they also have some very low-profile medical supply carriage systems, I guess you'd say, whether it be a pocket thing, along with a flex, which I've become a very big fan of. The flex system, basically, you take almost any holster, you attach it to this flex system, and then you have essentially a panel to add on things for appendix carry, whether it be a tourniquet or a knife or a flashlight or another gun if you want. It adds some comfort. It adds stability. It's really cool. I like it. Also, a big thank you to our Patreon subscribers. If you go to patreon.com/primary and secondary, you can help support the network. Essentially, by supporting the network, it's donating monthly for a specific amount of money, anything from $1, $5 and up. With each of those tiers, there's all kinds of benefits. If you start at the $5 a month perk, you wind up getting all kinds of discounts. Those discounts are good. Matter of fact, I understand a lot of people have spent way more money than they should have because of those discounts. So thanks, primary and secondary. Speaking of also Patreon stuff, this is the Murdered Out hat that is only available to the Patreon subscribers of, let's see here. Currently, it's only available to I think it's either 4.5 or 5.6, whatever the top two levels are. So, yeah. There's also this one. I like this one. It's lightweight. It also doesn't stain, it seems. No sweat stains. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about revolvers today. Let's pick on Lee for a quick intro. Lee, why the hell are we going to talk about revolvers?
So the answer I've been thinking about since we planned this would have worked really well if I was the last guy to be introduced. Revolvers, because I'm an ordinary asshole and the internet said not to. Specifically, as I started delving into kind of what the revolver offered me, I started to see a whole lot of things that people just weren't taking into account, particularly processing time and inherent safety. That's why revolvers.
Cool. And that also reminds me that someone posted on one of our pages they were thinking that primary and secondary endorses revolvers. No, we really don't endorse anything other than, well, proficiency and train. And you know what? If you're good with whatever, do you? It's not so much an endorsement; it's more of a discussion of options. So if you listen to this whole thing and determine, that's not for me, cool.
And honestly, I think a lot of people conflate the things that I say. I'm very upfront. I'm still early into my progression as a shooter. I'm lucky to have some outstanding mentors, some outstanding people who have pointed me in the right direction. But a lot of this is me asking questions to refine my articulation of why I'm a fan of the things I'm a fan of. And just because I ask a question that's pointed in one direction doesn't mean it's not also applicable elsewhere. I threaded 6 months ago about processing time and kind of the inherent advantages of double action only guns. Got shit on by a bunch of people because, oh my God, Revolver. Guys, it expands beyond just the immediately discussed. So that's what I've got.
And on top of that, hey, perfect. Excellent timing. We're just doing intros. Brandon's here.
Hey, guys.
Oh, and I'll call on you just in a moment. But that's also why we're doing mouse guns. Well, we're not really being proponents of mouse guns, even though I have a 32 right here I'm looking forward to shooting. But it's just about knowing what your options are. Apply the viable options, what you think works, and go from there. It's not, we're not necessarily endorsing, just endorsing information. Caleb, I think it's your turn. Damn it.
All right. Well, revolvers. So
just for the intro.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to talk about my background with revolvers, but
oh, sorry.
I'm Caleb Giddings. I talk shit on the internet for money. You can follow
Skillfully.
my shit talking on the internet at youtube.com/gunnutsmedia or on my Instagram at radicaleb with an underscore at the end. I work in the firearms industry. I'm the creative editor for Lone Wolf. So if you get a press release from us and you like it, I wrote it. If you don't like it, then I didn't write it. But I probably still wrote it. As far as and I'm also a combat arms instructor in the Air Force. I forgot about that. Weird. As far as revolvers go, I sort of accidentally fell into revolvers as a competition shooter. I was struggling with mindfulness in my shooting. And a friend of mine suggested I practice a little bit with a revolver just to kind of help me focus up on being in the moment of the shot I was taking and not worrying about the shot before that and or the shot after that. And it really worked. And I shot revolvers exclusively for almost 3 years in competition. And that really helped me gain an understanding of the utility that you get from a revolver. And again, it's like you said, you don't necessarily recommend a revolver over a semi-automatic, but there are a lot of things that you can do with a revolver in certain envelopes. And for someone who's interested in performance-based shooting, there are things that training with a revolver can give you that you don't get from training with any of the modern semi-automatic pistols.
Cool. I guess we can talk to Brandon now.
Hey guys, Brandon Hizak, used to be a cop, jumped states, became a paramedic. I got introduced to revolvers. Grandpa's retired duty weapon was given to me when he passed away. That's basically what I learned to shoot on. From there, carried one law enforcement for a number of years as a primary duty weapon, carried one as a backup gun, taken to pistol classes, continued to shoot, read as much as I can on the old ways, try and find those useful gems. Frankly, I just enjoy them.
And it's cool because that enjoyment can translate into increased performance, proficiency, focus. So if you have that, why are you not taking advantage of it and using it?
Well, yeah, if you like to do something, chances are you're going to do more of it than something you actually find a chore.
Yeah. And it appears that we have a legendary Mr. Chuck Haggard.
Is that legendary lawman Chuck Haggard?
Chuck Haggard, yes. Marshall.
Yeah, I think I got my audio working anyway.
Yep. So, Chuck, your background with revolvers?
It's Chuck Haggard, everybody. Everybody knows who he is.
I'm a little bit in awe.
I couldn't hear what you said, Matt.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, go ahead on your background.
I guess for the purposes of this podcast, I like to shoot revolvers.
This is the best episode ever.
I got into law enforcement back in the days when cops carried, by God, stainless steel or blue steel handguns, and holsters were made of leather. And I did not have a handgun background, but I quickly picked up the idea that would be an important thing for me to do. We had, when I started, 357 Magnum revolvers and an 870 shotgun with 4 rounds of number 4 buck in the car. And that was it. Any problems I was going to solve, it would be solved with one of those 2 guns. I learned very quickly that number 4 buckshot sucked. It had very, very poor penetration and distance to it. We didn't have slugs, so I started working on long-range revolver shooting. Eventually, after I got off of FTO phase, I got a backup gun. I was carrying a snub-nose 38 to back up my 357. So anyway, I started serious carry with revolvers. I've kind of kept them around ever since for various purposes. Is Brandon in a submarine? I keep hearing like sonar or some shit.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, guys. I'm driving home. I just got off work, so I was late.
Yes, but are you driving a submarine home?
Oh, God, no.
Because I'm hearing this like,
Ping.
I'm hearing this like ping ping.
I hear it too.
My little purple Honda Fit. Nope.
Hey, I've got one of those speed loaders, Caleb. They're pretty shit hot.
The speed bees, this is fucking cool. A good indicator of whether or not I like a product is whether or not I'm willing to spend actual money on it. And I bought this based on recommendations of multiple revolver enthusiasts, and it is the first speed loader that I've had for a 5-shot gun that doesn't suck a bag of fat dicks, because I'm going to go ahead and talk revolver. The HKS speed loaders suck. They're terrible. They fucking rounds fall out of them. And to be perfectly honest, the only Safariland speed loaders I like are the Comp 3s. I think the Comp 1s kind of suck too. So I don't have enough experience with the Comp 2s to know if they suck, but maybe.
The latest ones that I tried, I bought a couple of, were the 5-star. They're made out of aluminum, and those speed bees, because they're the only 2 people that are 2 companies that are making something for the Ruger LCR.
Mm-hmm.
I'm carrying a LCR 38 as my backup gun for a while.
Well, Chuck, I don't know if you can see. So what I've been dicking with on camera over here is I've got one of those Speed Beast 5-shot loaders for an LCR, because I've been carrying that 3-inch LCR a lot.
Yeah, I've got one for the LCR 38 and then one for the LCR 22. And let me tell you, that's the first 22 long rifle speed loader in history that I found that's legit, that you can actually get rounds out of a speed loader into the gun. Other speed loaders don't actually work that way with the 22s.
Now I'm going to go to see if Speed Bees makes one for the the Smith & Wesson 351. Because that 22 Magnum is the shit.
I think
I
they
believe
do.
they do.
I'll go ahead and throw in there. Their pouches are designed for gamer stuff along the lines of what Caleb's doing. However, I found out that in the appendix position, flipped around so it's sitting in the hip pocket with the clip out, makes for a very, very handy reload. I did about 50 or 60 miles hiking because I'll do a kill people gear for my main gun in a kit bag, and then I'll have an LCR, either the 3-inch for a while or the little snubby appendix ready to go, and this offsets very nicely.
That's interesting, because I mean, I'm a little bit old school. I don't, when I carry a revolver, which is not all the time, I rarely carry a reload for a wheel gun when I carry it, because as part of the risk assessment profile that I do when I choose to carry a revolver, I'm basically saying to myself, all right, I've accepted that the world is a dangerous enough place that I may need a gun to solve it. However, today I'm going to, because of whatever it is I'm doing, I'm going to gamble that I'll be able to solve that problem with something in between 5 to 7 rounds, depending on which wheel gun I carry. And I'm not going to take up the extra pocket space with a reload, because that space that I can put a flashlight or pepper spray or something that will probably be more useful than a reload that takes me 3.5 seconds to get into the gun. And that's a really good reload from a pocket on one of these little ass guns.
I tend to carry a speed strip for my snubs. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but if I've got a snub on me, I've got a speed strip with 4 rounds in it.
So that's actually a question I have for you, because I've always done, when I've carried the speed strips, I'll carry a 6-shot speed strip with 5 rounds in it, right? Because it gives you that extra hole that I can use to help manipulate it. Do you find, Chuck, that it's faster to get the 4 rounds into the gun because you can go 2 and 2 and then close the cylinder?
That's exactly what I do. And maybe it's part of when I came into it, a big part of law enforcement gunfighting lore was the Newhall Massacre.
Oh, God.
No, I'm talking about the legitimate lessons learned.
Oh, okay. Not he died with brass in his pocket part.
No. But one of the officers was aggressed and killed in the middle of reloading his revolver. He had 6 live rounds in the gun, and got shot in the top of the head when the guy walked, cut the angle on his cover. So the theory was, if he had, loading out of the pouches or the loops that were so common back then, if he had put 1 or 2 in the gun and then brought his vision up and saw the bad guy coming after him, could he have engaged with just 1 or 2? And we used to practice that. When I hired on, we still had dump pouches, which were just complete and utter fuckery. You were going to juggle bullets. You had 6 in the dump pouch. You were going to lose 2 or 3 anyway. So having a strip with 4 rounds in it, I have 2 space 2, and then an empty space, and then that little tab on the strip. And I will load 2, assess, load 2, and close. And I've done drills where I've done force on force with 38 sim rounds using that system, and have actually been able to pull off in force on force, topping off a round or 2, and then zapping somebody when they thought I was out of bullets and they were coming after me. Is it wishful thinking? Maybe, but I've seen enough incidents. I became a cop in '87. The FBI Miami fight was '86. That was very fresh. Newhall was very fresh. We had an epic shootout in Topeka just before my time. So anyway, some of that stuff, some of those lessons learned, revolvers lesson learned, kind of stuck with me.
What's interesting about that, to me, as someone who has not been exposed to that in the professional side of my career. When I started in the military in 2000, we were already on the M9. Is that when I started teaching defensive revolver classes, I drew a lot of inspiration from shotgun classes, and because I looked at ways to do, for lack of a better word, tactical reloads on revolvers, ways to top it off in the middle of a fight, ways to do a 2-shot reload if you needed to. And I drew a lot of that inspiration from the shotgun. I'm working with a very limited capacity weapon system here, and it's a lot easier in a lot of ways with a wheel gun to top it off in the middle of something than it is with a semi-auto, because you don't necessarily sacrifice any rounds. It's not easier from a mechanical standpoint. Changing a magazine is always easier than popping the cylinder open. But one of the things that I used to teach is with a wheel gun, where you can take assuming it's not a moon clip gun, which is dumb for self-defense, but with a wheel gun, if you fired 2 rounds and you press the ejection star and then release it, or the ejection lever and then release it, those 2 spent casings will stick up most of the time. You can grab them, pull them out, put 2 fresh rounds in there, and now your gun's topped off again. So it's interesting that was actually something that you guys dealt with back in the day, and that I arrived at through my own fuckery, trying to figure out ways to keep the gun loaded. So when I first started shooting revolvers for competition, the IDPA rules were very different than they were now. And there were multiple occasions where I would top a gun off while moving in the middle of a stage. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out ways to do that quickly. And it's interesting that was a problem that had already been solved, and that I arrived at a similar conclusion. There is nothing new.
Well, the speed strip thing was an extrapolation of mine from most urban departments had dump boxes, but the bullet loops, like the cowboy belt type loops. It was common to have cops. You'd have your revolver holster ahead of the holster on the duty belt. You'd have 12 rounds in those loops. It was like a little slide-on deal.
Yep.
And so
I apologize for how old this makes you feel. My father, when he first started with LA County Sheriff's Department, that was what he had with his K-frame and his clamshell Safariland holster.
Mm-hmm. The improved version of that was they were separated. It was rounds in clusters of 2. So you'd have 2 a space, 2 a space, 2 a space, and the whole concept was like shoot 2, load 2, shoot 2, load 4, or shoot 4, load 4. And then that way the loops were much better for that, because you weren't juggling all 6 loose rounds like the dump boxes were. And a lot of guys back then took to using the speed strips loaded into the dump box so that they were technically in compliance with their department. And they had to wear the dump boxes for uniformity, but then they could pull a speed strip out of it.
Right.
So I've got something here. This is the Tough Products 8-round strip, which was the evolution of what Chuck had kind of turned me onto the path before I even started shooting revolver. And this in a Blue Force Gear pouch, because I'm an appendix guy, appendix offset from the gun, set up for a right-hand draw, so I would pull it out of the pouch like this. Gave me a full 6-round cylinder reload, set up into 2s like this. I will say I don't necessarily like the Tough Products very much, because they've got a bow to them. Put it under a stack of ammo cans or something like that to kind of kill the shape of it, and they work out all right.
I don't find they survive nearly as long. They get inflexible and they'll crack on you.
They're really sensitive to cold. I left when I lived in South Dakota. I left one in the car overnight. It actually froze and cracked. So they're not. I mean, you have to treat. So for the people who are interested in revolver gear and good gear, the Tough Products, you just have to treat them like a disposable product. It's when you change the batteries in your RMR, change your tough product speed loaders.
Thanks for that, by the way, Caleb, because I don't deal with cold very often, and Arizona, I just don't. So
yeah, that's why I moved to fucking Miami.
And I was going to say, I think in front of me here, I've got every common speed loader to include speed strips. So if you guys need visuals, I've got it.
I have over here. I have Comp 3s because they're awesome. I have that one Speed Bees, which is awesome. And I have Moon Clips, which are awesome for competition only.
Now, I do like the Moon Clips for an administrative purpose. If a gun's cut for a 37 Magnum or 38 and they're already moon clipped, the rounds in the gun I used to leave in a moon clip for, going to the jail, having a gun up, unload. For administrative purpose, it was nice, but not for actually carrying your reload.
Yeah.
Things are just too soft. But they did make the admin shit very, very convenient.
Yeah, I can totally see that because I've never carried a revolver for duty purposes. What I have done is shot them again in competition. And what really turned me off for moon clips for carry guns was I shot a couple of years ago. Longer than that, 5 years ago. IDPA had their first ever backup gun match, right? And I shot it with a 640, a Smith & Wesson 640 Pro Series that was cut for moon clips. And one of my clips was bent, and it got bent somewhere in between one of the stages, but it wasn't bent enough that I could really see it unless I was looking at it closely, right? You had to squint at it super hard, but it was bent enough that when the bent section of the clip came up in the cylinder, my trigger pull went from the nice 9-pound D8 trigger that I had built into this gun to 6,438 pounds, trying to advance that slightly bent clip end past the shield and under the hammer. And man, did I shank the shit out of that shot trying to pull that trigger, because I'm screaming curse words at my gun. So that was that, and those clips had been bouncing around in pockets and stuff like that all day, and that was what turned me off to that as a way to carry a reload. I think for administrative purposes it'd be fine, but you'll never see me carry a reload in a moon clip.
So let's cover that. Let's cover methods of reload, and the camera's just on Lee. Methods of reloads and why you choose one over the other.
All right, so if the camera's on me, honestly, I prefer a speed loader 99.9% of the time. And I've got some examples here. Most speed loaders, Speed Bees, the Safariland competition M1, I want to say.
That's a Comp 2.
No, the actual holder. I think it's their M1, but regardless, they've got a couple. And then the jocks all pretty much fucking suck. Anything larger than a 5-shot, I found very difficult to consistently carry. Not even due to the weight of it, but just the size and the bulk. Particularly the jocks was about the most promising, but it's set up so here's the belt and you've got all that overhang. In a whole lot of ways, carrying a revolver is still stuck in the 80s. If I dug around a little bit more, I've got a triple 6 pouch, the Safariland, where it straddles the belt in the middle of the speed loader. We're still very much in the 80s as far as the support gear of revolver carry. Hint, we need Philster to come up with some black magic, because that's really what it needs to come into the main foray. Otherwise, speed strip in the pocket or a blue 4th gear pouch is how I would rock a reload.
So I guess I'll go next. I don't carry a reload for revolvers most of the time. When I do, it's a speed loader like the Speed Bees or the Safariland Comp 3 in a pocket. It'll be either in the most common time I'll carry, it'll usually be in a cargo pocket or a pants pocket or something like that, because again, I feel like, and I feel like carrying a reload with a small revolver is the height of optimism. When I do carry the stuff I use for competition, I use one brand of speed loader holders exclusively for competition, and I'm not sponsored by them. I pay actual money for these. These are the North Mountain speed loader holders. Their website is the number 4 and then the word wheelguns.com. So 4wheelguns.com. I use these exclusively for competition. What I'll do is I'll take the body of the speed loader holder and I'll put a layer of cardboard about an inch deep in it so that it holds the Comp 3 about yay high. So I can grab the entire tube of the Comp 3 like this and drive it into the gun, because I do a weak hand reload when I shoot a speed loader gun. I don't do any of that grip switching shit. The only people that are good at that are named Michalek, and that's not me. And then if you really, really want to fuck around, this is the North Mountain 4-wheel guns. That's right, 6 speed loader holder. This is for ICOR Classic Division, which is the most fun division you can shoot in ICOR, which, by the way, ICOR stands for International Confederation of Revolver Enthusiasts and is a revolver-only shooting sport. And I have this for ICOR matches, which I don't get to shoot that often. But, yeah, if you want to hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you want to hold 36 rounds of revolver ammo on your person at once, this is the way to do it. You can't you could conceal it if you're built like, never mind. If you have ample southern real estate, you could probably conceal this. I can't. It's way too big. But it's a really good product, and so North Mountain makes really good competition products, and really good ways, if you want to take a class with a revolver and you need to hold a lot of ammo, because if you take a class with a revolver, you're going to need a lot of ammo, stuff like that. But as far as concealed carry, I rarely carry a reload with a revolver, and when I do, it's usually just, a Speed Bees in the pocket. And I'm totally ordering a Speed Bees for my .22 Magnum, though, so,
Brandon?
All right, well, for me, I do carry a reload typically. Safariland Comp 1, which I haven't really had much of an issue with, other than they're so small and so hard to hold on to. Or I'm a big fan of the jet loaders, since you can't get the SL variants anymore. The jet loaders are for me the next best thing. A little bit more to hold on to, and then they're fast. For classes, it's a mixture of pockets and pouches. I've used Safariland Split 6s. Aren't too bad. They have a all metal version of that Split 6 holder, which is horrifically uncomfortable. And then they're all metal, kind of like a wire bucket, like Caleb was just showing us. That just doesn't have the tension for anything outside of a class. And most of the time I I split it. I reload both hands. Sometimes I juggle. Sometimes I shoot it like a pistol. It all depends on what pocket I'm pulling out of. And like when I did the hardwired class, I was walking up to the line with 8 loaders on me to get through the string. So there's just no way I was able to keep that many rounds on my belt and run from concealment. So it was reaching the left pocket, reaching in the right pocket, wherever I still had reload.
One of my favorite scenes in all movies of all time is in the end of Benicio del Toro. Shit.
Way of the Gun.
Thank you. The Way of the Gun. When he's patting his pockets looking for that last reload, and he's like, because he's totally gonna he's gonna put an anchor around in him if he's got that reload, and he's like, oh well, I guess I don't have it today. Your lucky day. Love that.
All right, so I've got to ask Brandon and Caleb. You guys said you do a weak hand reload.
I do a weak hand reload.
Why? Specific to a class, I totally get, because otherwise you're like fishing them out of a dump pouch. But why are you running a weak hand reload, Caleb?
Okay, I got some snap caps here. So the big reason I do a weak hand reload is with a Comp 3 or a jet loader or a Speed Bees loader, what a weak hand reload allows me to do is when I grab the speed loader out of my pouch, what I'm doing is I'm seating the barrel. So for those that don't know, the long part of the Safariland Comp 3, if you're just listening to this, go on Google Safariland Comp 3. The long skinny part is called the barrel. All right. So the barrel of the speed loader seats in the same place in my weak hand that the toe of the magazine would seat if I was doing a reload with a pistol. Okay. My index finger indexes along the tip of one of the rounds in the speed loader. So my index finger is now indexed right here on the tip of one of these rounds. The reason that I do that then is when I break the gun, so if I'm up here on target and I burn my 6, when I break the gun, I'm not sacrificing my firing grip at any point. So I keep a full firing grip on the gun with my dominant hand, and then as the gun comes down and the speed loader moves to my gun, I look at one of the holes. It's usually, however the cylinder ends up, there will always be a hole that's at the top left-ish orientation. So that's the charge hole that I look at. I look at that charge hole, and then I point my index finger at that charge hole and charge the gun. So because my index finger is indexed on the tip of a round, and I'm looking at that round, and I'm looking at the hole where I want that round to go, humans, and this is something Scott Jedlinski talks about, humans are really good at pointing at stuff and touching stuff, right? So if I'm looking at the thing and I'm just trying to point my finger at it, it gives me a really consistent weak hand reload, and it's something that I can do without having to stabilize the cylinder. So a lot of the reloading techniques you'll see, you're going to give away a half a second to a second trying to go for some sort of cylinder stabilization technique because you're not trying to drive your index finger into the hole. So when I set up my pouches before a stage or anything like that, I make sure that they're set up so that my grab is instantly with my index finger indexed on that bullet. And it's the same thing. If I'm doing a reload from a pocket, when I grab that loader out of my pocket, what I'm feeling for isn't the body of the loader. What I'm feeling for is the tip of a projectile. So I'm feeling for that projectile. When I find that, I put my index finger on that, and then I wrap the rest of the loader into my hand.
What are you doing with your firing hand thumb?
Hang on, let me tell you. My firing hand thumb comes up and away from the frame. So basically, it just comes up and off the frame so that it doesn't get in the way of the reload. It usually ends up riding around like behind the hammer or something like that. If there's a full hammer on the gun. I never really thought about that until you asked me just now. So I had to be like, hang on one second. That's where it goes. Okay.
I definitely had a speed loader in hand, like as you're walking through your steps going, wait, no, how the fuck is he doing that? My thumb's in the way. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm a retard.
Hey, Caleb, can you do another demonstration?
Yeah, sure. Let me grab some more.
The other demonstration would be traditional reloading with loose rounds, the one where you're putting the gun in your left hand.
Oh, loose rounds? Fuck that noise. Who does that?
I don't. But information, and also and go walk it step by step, because it's to me it's important for people to understand where we came from, because that was the way it was done.
Okay, so
the guys carrying the loose rounds and
the loose hand reload. The best way to do that is, it's weird. So I've got this LCR 3-inch, which is currently the best defensive revolver on the planet. Mine's covered in rust because I sweat alien goo. But with this reload, the best way to do it is, it's weird. And I don't have a lot of business cycles on this reload, but I know, and I may fuck this up. So Chuck, if I get any of this wrong, like, help me out here. But but a lot of guys would do it where they would have their spares in their support hand already. So you fire your gun, I'm out. So you go and you fish your spares out of your pocket or your pouch or wherever that you are. You break the gun open, eject your empties, and then you're going to place the gun in your support hand with your spares, holding it open. So your shit's in the same hand, and then you're taking them one at a fucking time, and it's really slow, and people are trying to kill me right now, and I don't like this, and now I'm back on target. And it takes a while to reload the gun doing that, like a long time. The other thing that you can do, the other way that you can reload it using loose rounds, if you're down to clown, is if you have the two pouches, like the pouches that group the rounds by two, it's a lot easier to grab 2 rounds in your weak hand and go 2 and grab another 2 and put another 2 in than it is and I just threw one on the ground. And that's why reloading with fucking loose rounds is bullshit.
We're going to find brass in your pockets, aren't we?
Oh, that's how I'm going to die. Kilt in the streets.
So the way I was taught was, we have a empty 442 here, is on the reload, you open it up, you switch hands, and then you're holding it like this. So you have control of the cylinder. And then with your strong hand, you individually load.
I've done that. So that's the one that I've done the most. I was introduced to the weak hand holding the rounds and the gun at the same time as a historical technique, and I fucked around with it, and it actually worked for what I'm trying to do with the gun. It worked really well, and it was more positive than having like 5 rounds in this hand and trying to thumb them in one at a time and not drop them. I don't know if it's faster, but what it really taught me is that reloading with single rounds is dumb, and you should carry a speed strip or a speed loader. The other speed loader reload that everybody talks about, of course, is the switch hand reload, which is very common. It's very popular in competition shooting. I've never been able to master it, but everyone's got slightly different variations of it. But by and large, that one is you burn your 5 or 6 rounds, and then when you open the gun, the process of opening the gun, I transfer it to my weak hand, press the ejection rod with my thumb, and then my strong hand. Now, this is the part that I do the same, is the way I grab it. It's still index finger to bullet tip. I grab it, I look at the hole I want that bullet tip to go into, and I press it in, and I'm done. My problem with this reload has always been, after this point, when I let go of the speed loader, I fuck around trying to regrip this shit, and the next thing I know, I'm like this, and I'm like, oh, this is not the result I was looking for, guys.
That sounds like a YouTube video.
How to fucking throw your revolver on the ground and get disqualified from an IDPA match? I don't know what you're talking about.
I do the switch hand reload, not to the same horrific result as Caleb, but the main reason I use it is for the ejection force. Honestly, I really like being able to hit and eject with my strong hand. because I feel like this angle's a little better than what I get if I keep it here and trying to get this hand in front.
So with the same hand reload or the weak hand reload, when you do that, a lot of people struggle with that because what they're doing is they're trying to like slide up the gun and then like kind of tap the rounds out. In competition, that works just fine because what I do with my competition guns is so for a 357 competition gun, I'll take a 40 cal bronze bore brush and I'll chuck it into a cordless drill and I'll lube up the inside of the chamber and then I'll go wee in my chambers a little bit. It doesn't really take any metal out of it, but it makes everything nice and smooth. So empty brass basically falls out of my competition guns, which is what I want, right? If you're dealing with a gun that's a little bit stickier, the big trick with that reload is you need to orient the gun muzzle vertical. Like you need to be muzzle, you need muzzle up to Jesus, and then you hit that ejection rod with your support hand. I will tell you from personal experience, if you're shooting a 45 ACP gun and you have a ruptured piece of brass in there and you spank that ejection rod, it's going to hurt no matter what.
And honestly, for me, the weak hand clearance, the weak hand ejection just skeeves me out. I don't know why it's doing this hand kind of floating there.
Turn your hand over. Like you're going like this? Go like this.
No. That would hurt. No, I'm good. No, and it's just the hand floating there. I can't really get it on video just due to the way. But if I'm here, I've got an angle in. The other thing is when I transition, my arms come in very similar to like a fence muck position as that consistent index point, so I can get my reload off my belt. I've got consistent index points, which I didn't have up here, and it just kind of skeeves me out a little bit.
And to make sure that I'm staying in my lane, for the listeners, I have never really spent a lot of time thinking about reloading a revolver outside of a competition context, where I'm looking to eliminate wasted motion as much as I can. So a lot of the thing, and obviously I'm the last person who will say competition will get you killed in the streets, but with a wheel gun especially, the techniques that are optimized to get the empties out of the gun as quickly as possible and fresh rounds into the gun as quickly as possible, while they're definitely the fastest way to do it, they may not be practical for a real world employment of a revolver for dealing with the tactical situation that you may have at hand. It's reloading a revolver is not like reloading a center fire handgun where there's really only one way to do it efficiently, right? There's literally one, and we're done. There's one good reload for semi-autos. With a revolver, you switch hands, don't switch hands. Which hand am I hitting the ejector rod with? Do I want to use my thumb? Do I want to come over the top and do a stress fire reload? There's a lot of different ways to do it. And with limited exception, none of them are really wrong. If your desirable end state is an efficient, repeatable reload, none of them are really the wrong way to do it.
Cool. So, what are some of your guys' favorite myths about revolvers?
Well,
Caleb is ruminating on this, going, ugh.
I have so many, but I want Chuck to talk because Chuck's easily 300% smarter than me.
Yeah, I don't know about that. The idea that they're flawlessly reliable, that they never jam, is complete bullshit. Back in the day when we were shooting a PBC style 60 round qual with full house magnums, it was common to get about the 15-yard line about halfway through the qual. And the range master we had would stop the qual, and they'd pass toothbrushes up and down the line.
Yep.
Everybody would get the powder granules out from under their ejector star so that we could continue the course. Because there was we were issuing Model 66 Smith & Wessons at the time, but there was a mix of other guns, Pythons and things like that people had bought. And there was a lot of guns that couldn't finish a 60-round qual course without having that excessive trigger pull problem that Caleb noted with the bent moon clip, because you would get crap under your ejector star, and it wouldn't take much debris to cause that problem. And they did work very, very reliably until they didn't, and then it tended to be a parts breakage, and it was a hard stop. It's, you better have a workbench and some tools and some spare parts and stuff when they did go down.
Well, and and honestly, that's my favorite revolver myth, is that they're infallible machines. Because, yes, if I get a light primer strike in a revolver, the malfunction reduction method is to pull the trigger again. But if something actually fucking breaks in my revolver, I need tools and a workbench to fix it. Like, there's no field maintenance that I'm going to do in the middle of a gunfight if actually something really goes wrong with my gun.
More favorite myths?
I'll hit on it's the perfect gun for your girlfriend, mother. I'm going to say I think this myth actually has a basis in reality. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
I'll take the second part of that.
Yeah, what a bunch of people have seen us do tonight is show the cylinder to the camera going, it's unloaded. Fucking that. For the love of God, it is the easiest gun as far as maintaining a safe administrative process that we can no shit, make sure the gun is clear, make sure that when we're handling it, doing anything of the sort, that we're safe about it. There is no fucking round hiding under the slide. So, oh, hey, I ran the slide. I got a round come out. And then they ND into the coffee table when they go to take down their Glock. On the other side of that, my mother is the example that I use heavily in a lot of this. My mother is never going to reload. She's never going to do a whole lot of the stuff that we consider essential skills to gun handling. Why? Because this isn't her hobby. This isn't what she does for fun. She can work the trigger on this GP100. I've got a competition spring kit in it, and due to the shorter reach, she can actually work this pretty damn well.
Yes, but can she lift it? Because it's a GP100.
I'm aware.
They don't weigh any more than a Smith. Just that's different.
And it's not the actual gun I'd give to her, but I had her try it because I was curious. And for someone who's not going to reload regardless of gun, in the, like, no shit what gunfights require, if she can produce a gun and get hits, that's all I care about. And while tagged with all the extra safety shit, I think it's kind of a win.
So to kind of piggyback onto that, the whole your white, there's this weird double-edged myth, right, where revolvers get recommended as defensive guns a lot for people where it's not necessarily appropriate. With the asterisks on that, at the same time, if someone came to me and they said, Caleb, I want to buy a gun for self-defense, my reaction would be, do you really? Because I want to know what their circumstances are that are creating this. And there are a lot of people out there who have it in their heads that they want a gun for self-defense, when in reality they would be better served taking day one of ECQC and learning how to muck people and getting a fucking can of pepper spray, and they don't really need a gun, and they're not necessarily the sort of person who I want to have a gun. So, but they've got it in their heart and mind that they need a gun. So actually that person should get a revolver. And the big reason to get a revolver is, one, what was said already, in that it is the easiest gun in the world to verify is unloaded. It has the simplest manual of arms. And the second part of that, and this is something that that I've talked about in the past, is it is very difficult to negligently discharge a wheel gun. So when Granny Goodness has her Smith & Wesson J-frame and she's shaking like a leaf in the wind, pointing her gun at the masked man, she's probably not going to burn a round into someone that doesn't need a round burned into them. The trade-off on that, of course, is yes, it is more difficult to get good hits if you don't have training with this revolver, but we're sort of living in a world here of what's more likely to happen. Is this little old lady more likely to shoot herself in the leg with a Glock 43 or with a Smith & Wesson J-frame than she is to ever encounter actual real world violence? So there's a lot more that goes into this. It's not just a yes or no, I want a wheel gun. It's a really nuanced topic because there are some people who, would be much better served with a Glock 43 or a Shield or whatever. And then there's some people who I'm like, I'm going to give you a wheel gun and I might give you blanks and tell you they're just special rounds.
I will say on that, in addition to Granny shaking with her snub nose while she's pointing a gun at her grandson, I had the opportunity to take my little brother out, and he and I have
wait, like phrasing? Take your brother, like you just
oh yeah, just straight to the back of the dome.
God damn.
We were out by the border. That seemed like the appropriate action. I had the chance to take him out shooting, and I had nothing to do with his initial draw stroke. I unfucked it the best I can. As he was coming out of his pocket, he was flagging his support hand, as we've seen a ton of people do. This trigger is significantly harder, even if you get on it way too early, significantly harder. By the time you're done with the trigger press, the chances are that the muzzle's past anything that's going to cause you serious pain.
There's a photo of me from an IDPA match where I'm shooting this gun and I'm in the middle of a seated draw stroke and the muzzle is like here, right? Like it's dick level and I'm on the trigger. It's oriented downrange. It's pointed at like a barricade or something like that. I'm on the trigger because the next thing that's going to happen is the muzzle's coming up and I'm going like that to shoot. But it's the intentionality that's required with a revolver trigger, I think, is nice. That's a made-up word, intentionality, by the way. It's not a real word, guys.
Copyright.
I will throw out that back in the day, it was common to issue like Jordan holsters and things like that did not have covered trigger guards, because the idea was you were supposed to get your finger on the trigger as you established the master grip, and you were already applying pressure as you cleared the holster. Historically, that turned out to be not the best idea anybody ever came up with. But that was actually, it wasn't until a couple of years into my career that covered trigger guard holsters and not doing that was really starting to get pushed. The whole, finger outside the trigger guard till decision to fire was made came about in the revolver days, and it came about for a good reason.
So, Chuck, I think you'll appreciate this, and I'll reference my dad again. He's probably 20 years older than you are, and he to this day, because he was trained in he spent the beginning and the developmental years of his law enforcement career with those Jordan style holsters, the Safariland, the clamshell holsters that had the exposed trigger guard and that training methodology. To this day, when he shoots, his finger goes straight into that trigger guard. And it's like to the point that when I was helping him shop for a carry gun, I was like, here's a SIG P250, which for the record, I don't hate. I actually like the P250 for the same reasons that I like the 92D. But I was like, here's a SIG P250, Dad. I think this will fit the style of shooting that I will not be able to break you from. Like, I'm not going to do it. And, you know, at his age, he's not going to change what he's doing. And God, I know my dad doesn't listen to this, but like on the off chance that he does, I love you, Dad. You're an amazing man. Take your finger off the trigger, please. Anyway.
Did you say he was LA sheriff?
Yeah, he was LA sheriff back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So like back in the wild days.
They were still teaching and allowing finger on the trigger until just a couple of years ago. They were still getting away with it on the Berettas and 45s. And then when they got Glocks and MMPs, it became a real problem.
Well, for those of you that don't remember this, there was an article 3-5 years ago talking about negligent discharges at the Sheriff's Academy because they had just adopted the M&P as their new, you're coming in, you're getting issued this pistol during training, and like, you know, and when you graduate training, you can get an M9 or, you know, a Glock or whatever, but this is your gun that you're getting issued in training. And they were having a ton of issues with negligent discharges in training to the point that they tried to blame it on Smith & Wesson. And Smith & Wesson was like, we love this contract, but also get fucked because that's not the gun that's doing that. But to the revolver point, it is interesting to see how, you know, with someone like my dad, who was, you know, the definition of old school West Coast law enforcement, that habit of putting the finger in the trigger guard has stuck with him. And, you know, it doesn't surprise me that they were still doing that to a certain extent. It's sort of disappointing though. But speaking of the usefulness of revolvers, Matt, can we talk about how revolvers are useful in certain applications like NPEs?
Just this once. You mean like this 32 caliber?
Exactly.
Stop showing off your goddamn underwear gun.
You know, hang on. I'm gonna get my
like this
underwear
442.
gun. Wait, hang on. I'm getting my underwear guns.
No, that's another episode.
Since he walked away real quick, I'll hit on. This is a Glock 19. This was formerly a Roland Special. In this is a New York 1 trigger. A trigger spring. Because after having done the revolver thing for a little bit here, I decided that there was a whole lot of merit, and I was going to make my Glock the most revolver-like I could make it. Particularly as we talk about processing times and that intentionality of the trigger press. There is something there for, as Caleb's showing off the Italian underwear gun. There was something there for the intentionality of that trigger press.
So, talking about NPEs, first and foremost.
Before we get into that, are you free on October 11th?
Actually, no, I'm not.
You suck.
I do, but...
Because we do have an episode specifically about mouse guns. So for this, we need to focus more on revolvers.
Right. So,
but NPE revolver. Yeah.
NPE revolver.
Like with this 442.
Or this 351 PD, which is the Scanudium Unobtainium 22 Magnum revolver, which I've put Crimson Trace Sweet Beans on because the sights are bullshit on this gun. I will say this to the revolver haters: most revolvers designed for concealed carry have bullshit sights. Like they suck. All right. The one of the reasons I love the 3-inch LCR is because the sights are good. Most of my other revolvers were laser grips because I'm not fucking around trying to aim with this gutter sight from 1933. Anyway, let's say hypothetically today I needed to go a place that was a legal NPE, so it's not illegal for me to carry a gun there. I would never advocate carrying a gun somewhere that's illegal, but the host of that place was very much, please don't carry guns here. And I'm like, but also get fucked. So my normal carry gun when I'm not getting paid to carry something else is Beretta 92D, which I'm carrying which I carry on the reg. I felt like that came with an unacceptable risk of compromise because it's not, I can turn unless I'm wearing a parachute t-shirt, there are positions I can take where the gun prints a little bit, right? Even with the amazing Dark Star gear holster, ching, or that I carry with it, there are situations where this gun will print. So I'm like, I need something that I can carry in an NPE and not worry about any printing or anything like that, even if I'm wearing, just a fucking baby Gap sized t-shirt, which is the value that you get from these super lightweight, small framed revolvers, is that they are the easiest shit on the planet to conceal. They're easier to conceal than a Glock 43. They're easier to conceal than a Shield. They're even, as someone who's carried a pocket mouse gun, easier to conceal than a pocket mouse gun.
Pretty
because
close.
So the neat thing about the small revolvers, especially like this one, is I can put this in a belt holster, the Dark Star gear holster, which I like a lot, or the Philster City Special, which I also like a lot. And I have a small gun that is concealed to the point that I'll carry it into an NPE that has serious social consequences for if I got caught and not even sweat. And that's, to me, again, one of the biggest advantages of small revolvers. I have a difficult time doing that with a 43, and I also can't carry a 43 while I go running. I can carry an unobtainium framed J-frame while I go running. That's it. I just, I like carrying guns where I'm not supposed to carry guns. I mean, not legally not allowed. I love following the law. Always.
People would rather you didn't.
I always follow the law. I am the most law-abiding law-abider that ever abided a law.
On that, honestly, what started me carrying revolvers was doing a whole lot of yard maintenance, car maintenance, climbing under cars, chopping down mesquite tree, and all of that wonderful stuff that comes with domestic life. Everything that makes the revolver fantastic for non-permissive environments makes it significantly more comfortable and less impeding for all of that. In appendix, you have the cylinder sitting inside the hip pocket, which is fantastic as far as comfort goes, and you don't have any sharp edges along the top there pressing against the body. It's fantastic, and anybody who says that they don't have a use for a small revolver like this, I've just got to say it's got to be nice. To pay somebody to do all of your manual labor, got to be a real cushy life.
Wait, that's an option? I can pay somebody to do my manual labor? Fuck.
Dude, Home Depot, that's the way.
Dude, you can't say that. They'll come for us. I'm in Miami.
Dude,
here.
I'm 2 miles from the border and I tan. I trust me, I feel your pain. I'm getting deported with them.
That is fair. I mean, to Miami, you should have to have a passport to come to Miami. Like, my girlfriend and I were both, like white people. I'm from California. I've lived in the Midwest. She's from New York. We're like white people, right? We should have passports here because we're so in the minority. I get my Uber and I'm like, what up, dude? ¿Cómo estás? I'm like, all right, it's going to be one of those Uber rides. I don't know what you're saying. You don't know what I'm saying. Follow the directions and we're good. And then he takes a wrong turn and I'm like, no. Just, God damn it. There's traffic. Fuck, I'm just going to sit here and text.
I have the wife to translate, so I'm good.
Oh, that's nice.
But sorry, I like my snub to have real sights too.
Oh, yes. Is that the Wiley Clapp SP101?
It is, along with the recommended laser from you that you suggested.
Did that thing shoot like an inch and a half low with everything that you tried to stick through it? Because mine did.
Not an inch and a half, but yeah, it shoots a little low. The lasers fixes that.
The worst one I had, and so here's a revolver complaint. So if you're out there and you're considering a revolver for personal defense, you absolutely have to find a round that shoots to the sights for it. A lot of them are regulated for like 158 grain bullets going, 3 feet per second or whatever. And it can be frustrating when, a lot of modern ammo doesn't shoot to your sights. I'll kick this out to the rest of the panel. My solution for that has been I would rather have ammo that shoots to my sights and isn't necessarily like optimal defensive ammo than, have whatever death ray hollow point bullet that doesn't shoot to my sights. But I don't know how the rest of you guys feel about that.
Absolutely, especially with fixed sight snubs. You pick the ammo that shoots to the sights and then just work with it. Dirty little secret of a lot of the ammo that's out there for very short barrel guns. And I'm learning this even with the micro 9mm and things like that. All of these jacketed hollow points don't necessarily work out of these very, very short barrel guns. And some of the ones that do will under penetrate badly. So I go for penetration and shoots to the sights. And then if it expands or whatever from there, then I'm happy about that. All of that is why most of my lightweight snubby revolvers are carried with Federal Gold Medal Match wad cutters in them as my carry ammo. They shoot to the sights. They're low recoil. They're easy to control. They penetrate very, very well. They cut a very clean hole. So, that's the ammo that I go with. I've talked with Claude Werner about that. Excellent choice there, Caleb. And I have known guys to carry old school 158 grain round nose lead or, varieties of ammo like that because it shoots to the sights and sufficient penetration. And that's the most important thing.
Well, and to be fair, there are entire graveyards full of dudes who have been killed with 158 grain, lead round nose bullets and shit like that.
I had this conversation with Ed Lovett. If you haven't read Ed's Snubby book, you should.
Snubby Revolver.
He made a comment to me. You know that a round nose lead worked better than most people give it credit for. Conversation with Pat Rogers because he never had hollow points on the job. He had lead semi-wad cutters in his 38 when he hired on, and that's what he carried for a lot of years. And we were talking ballistics at one of the pistol classes up in Iowa, and told the class, those actually work pretty good if you can shoot. And there's the key. What I've noted is wound ballistics wise, you can have 45s, 10 millimeters, whatever. And if you're shooting people around the edges, that shit don't work. If you center mass people above the diaphragm, that tends to work pretty good as long as you got sufficient penetration.
That will be my next change. Currently, Corbon, they're medium velocity 357. They're at DPX round for my magnums, and then still rocking old school 158 grain lead semi-wad cutters for the 38s, just because I bought so ridiculously much of it.
Nothing wrong with that.
I'll let Chuck shame me for this one because I'll admit that this Model 10, which is what really kind of started Revolver for me, is currently one of two guns that sits out in the house basically and anytime we're not headed out of town. Specifically, it sits in my garage on my safe because I had somebody try and follow me home. It's loaded with 148 grain semi-wad cutters because they hit to the sights and there's zero recoil. So, okay, if the first one didn't quite impress them enough, I've got 5 more that I know will do the job.
Why would we shame you for that? That's dope.
Well, I mean, unsecured gun. I shouldn't do that, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that we're shaming you for. But on the wad cutter thing, and this goes back to what Chuck was talking about as well, in that I think that there's a lot of foam on the top of your latte about things that don't necessarily matter when it comes to handgun ballistics. And it was one of the things. So one of the things that Ernie said in his class that has stuck with me for a while was, what do people do right after you shoot them with a handgun? The same fucking thing they were doing before you did. And it doesn't matter what handgun you shot them with. It doesn't matter if you shot them with a 45 expanding Death Blossom ray with Griggs in the back seat. And anyone who gets that reference, I'm going to be really impressed by. But or 158 grain, lead round dose. If it doesn't hit them in an important hydraulic system or an important computer system, it's not going to fucking matter. Also, that was a reference to The Last Starfighter, the cheesiest of 80s sci-fi movies. Death Blossom, Griggs, I forget the name of the main character. So good. Not actually good. Not like a good movie.
For its time, it was a good movie. So where are we? Oh, I got a question. Unless Lee has one.
I was going to say, for the panel, exposed hammer or shrouded?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
What do you need a hammer for?
To pin in place.
If you've got a hammer on your gun and you're going to conceal carry that gun, then you probably ought to whack the hammer off of the gun. You can go back to John Wesley Hardin, Old West gunfighter, was drawing his revolver when the good guys are actually, it worked out. The good guys were trying to arrest him. He's pulling his gun and his hammer hangs up on his suspenders when he's trying to pull it out of his waistband. That sort of thing is pretty common with guns that have hammers on them. So if you got a double action revolver with an exposed hammer, you're going to carry it concealed, whack that hammer spur off.
Or don't wear suspenders.
Well, it doesn't necessarily take suspenders.
So I know I 100% agree with Chuck in actuality that a concealed carry revolver has no business having a hammer spur. However, mine still do, mostly because I'm lazy. I think that the value on a concealed carry revolver of having some sort of hammer. So if you take, all right, I'm going to use the GP100 here as an example. So with the GP100, if you buzz the hammer spur off, you still have enough hammer there that you can put your thumb over it while you're holstering the weapon, so that if there's an obstruction in your holster that you can't see, you're not going to have a negligent discharge. I don't like shrouded hammers that I can't actually touch, for the same reason that I kind of don't like striker fired guns. I don't like not being able to impede the gun from making a loud noise when I'm holstering it. That being said, for my competition guns, for those of you that are interested in shooting a revolver in competition, I actually like to keep the hammer spur on them for the reason that before I start the stage, so after load and make ready, I load my gun. What I'll do before I start the stage is I'll lightly pull the hammer back just enough to allow the cylinder to freewheel, and then I'll actually spin the cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And what I'm doing when I do that is I'm making sure that the 6 rounds that I have in that gun don't have any high primers. There's not any weird, goofy shit going on with those rounds that's going to stop the gun from going bang, that's going to stop me from having a good initial 6 rounds on that stage. And yes, I know I can't do that for the remaining however many rounds, but at the very least, I know the first 6 rounds of the gun are absolutely going to work 100%, which is why my carry guns, I like to bob the hammer spurs. My competition guns, I like to leave the hammer spurs intact. What I've done in the past with these guns is my old GP100 that I used to shoot with, I actually had the single action notch removed from the hammer, so it was impossible to fire the gun in single action, but I left a spur on it so I could freewheel the cylinder with my thumb if necessary. That's a super gamer fag modification and is completely unnecessary in the real world, but it's something that I did for a specific purpose to accomplish a specific performance-related goal.
Any ignition issues? Do you have to respring or anything as you're chopping a little bit of the mass of the hammer for reliable ignition?
Not if you use federal primers. So here's some revolver nerd shit. The lighter you go, now I'm not as great with Smith & Wesson revolvers as I am with Ruger revolvers. I've done a ton of shit with Ruger. I've done a lot of work on their guns myself. And with Ruger, there's definitely a sweet spot where if you go below it, you're going to get light ignition on almost everything. This gun, my GP100, has my trigger pull gauge is really far away. So it's got a 9-pound DA pull, and I get 100% ignition so long as I use Federal American Eagle ammunition in this gun. So the sights in this gun are set for 130 grain Federal American Eagle FMJ because it reloads the best, and that's literally all this gun has ever shot. It's never tasted another round of ammunition, but that because it sort of goes back to the old joke. You know, you go to the doctor and jam yourself in the eye, and you say, "Doctor, it hurts when I do this." When the doctor says, "Well, fucking stop doing that." If I have a round that doesn't work in this gun, I'm just not going to shoot that round out of that gun. Revolvers are a lot like rifles, right? When you've got a bolt gun and it doesn't group with brand X of ammo, but it groups with brand Y of ammo, no one's going to tell you that your gun's fucked up because it won't shoot brand X. They're just going to say shoot brand Y. Revolvers are the same way. If you've got a revolver with a dope trigger and it shoots to the sights with 130 grain Federal FMJs, but it won't light the primer on a Spear Gold Dot, well, shoot the fucking Federal out of it. Matt, am I doing good on the fucks for this episode?
Yes.
That makes me feel good. That was the wrong one. The other kind of the other revolver thing, and this is the last thing that I'm really passionate about revolvers, and this goes back to the intentionality of the trigger. But if you shoot seriously for self-defense, one of the great advantages to training with a revolver is it makes you very intentional in your shooting. So I'll use IDPA as an example. On an IDPA stage, the longest IDPA stage is 18 rounds, right? You have a 6-shot gun. That's 2 reloads. If there's any steel or anything on that stage and you miss, if you take a shitty shot and you have to make that shot up, you're not just now making up that shitty shot, you're also, best case scenario, the very best reload I've ever done from concealment with a revolver is 2.45 seconds. That's a really long time in a match, right? So with a revolver, the advantage that you get is it teaches you an intentionality in your shooting moments. It's kind of like driving a race car. When you start driving a race car, you're out of gas. By the time you need to refuel your car, you're really, really out of gas. And when you start shooting a stage in a revolver, you're already out of bullets. You're at an ammunition stage where a lot of people would say, you've only got 6 left in the mag, do a reload. So it gives you this focus and this intentionality on every shot, on every trigger pull, where you really do make it count. And yeah, you can run a revolver down into the low 0.2s on splits, but do you really want to? That's for me, that's the biggest thing, and where my love of revolvers and my passion for them as a sort of like super nerdy subset of this martial art of handgun shooting comes from, is that when I train with a revolver, if I've been shooting semi-autos and I take a break and I go shoot wheel guns for 6 months, when I come back to shooting the semi-autos, I find that I am more accurate, more intentional with my shots than I was before I left. And when we live in a world where you're carrying a gun for personal defense and it looks really cool on Instagram to whip your gun out and shoot super fast, but in the real world, there's a lot of moving no shoots around, and there's, little Susie Durkins and all of these other things. And if you're in this situation where you actually need to take a shot that counts, I want myself, I want everybody to be in the moment of that shot and nothing else. I don't want you to be thinking about the next shot or the shot before it. If you're taking a shot for real, for blood, I really want you to be thinking about that shot and not the other shit that is about to happen or has already happened, because that actually matters. And for me, again, that's been the big value in training with revolvers, is it gives me that intentionality in the moment.
So, question for the panel. Let's see here. If you had one revolver to carry, say, for a defensive type of a role, anything, and one for NPE, what would they be? And if you happen to have them, please show.
I think the 3-inch K-frames are probably the Glock 19 of the revolver world, especially with the round butt. You can do a lot of good work with a gun like that. So something along those lines, 3 or 4-inch, but 3-inch would sometimes carry a little bit better. And then for me, for an NPE, backup gun, training gun, things like that, probably a Smith & Wesson 43C, which is, I don't even know what mine weighs, probably 9.5, 10 ounces. It's an 8-shot, 22 long rifle, 2-inch, built on the same lines as Smith & Wesson 642 or any of the Centennial style Smith & Wessons. If I got stuck with that's all I could have, that would probably be what I would go with.
And before we go to another, Chuck, I have a topic for you after we're done with this little segment. I want to talk to you about carrying an ankle gun, specific to a revolver, and also injury that's occurred due to excessive weight. So
okay.
Next for people's favorite revolvers. Anyone? Bueller?
So here's some gun nerd stuff. If I could only carry one revolver, I would carry the Postal Inspector Ruger Speed 6, which was Ruger's answer to the 3-inch K frame. It was a Security 6 frame, the 2 3/4-inch barrel, and fixed sights and a round butt. And it was just a great gun. And they were issued to the U.S. Postal Inspectors for years. And every now and then they'll pop up on Gunbroker. And I'm an idiot because I didn't buy a bunch of them when they were $250, because now they're like $400. And that's bullshit. For NPEs, I've already talked about it. It's the Smith & Wesson 351 PD. So this is a 7-shot 22 Magnum made out of scandium. It's extremely lightweight, extremely easy to conceal. It's the sort of gun where you put it on and you're like, I'm not carrying a gun. And then the last that I'm going to throw out there is the greatest revolver of them all, the 16-shot K-frame, the Beretta 92D.
The Beretta 92. Oh. Mine's a Langdon though, so I just had to add that.
That's more better.
I was really hoping Caleb was going to show a little bit harder, because if I have to choose one, honestly, I really do enjoy carrying this GP100. It's huge. I hate it.
So heavy.
I'm aware. I'm not a man-child like you.
Okay, hold up. I have 2 GP100s on this desk. I love the GP100, but it's the weight penalty is just insane. And that's why I like the Security 6. It's a little bit lighter.
That's why I don't like the SPO1 versus the PO9.
So wait, are we talking? No, the SPO1. Okay, never mind. Yeah. The SP101, by the way, amazing.
And I didn't know that was a thing. You're going to have somebody else to bid against on Gunbroker now. Thanks for that, Caleb. No, this is specifically the Wiley Clap GP100. It is probably my favorite do everything revolver because it's got real sights. That said, I would trade that and a bunch of other things for what Caleb has been shilling for a minute, which is a 3-inch Ruger LCRX in 327. Because I want that. Yeah.
Please, Ruger.
I will drive up to Prescott and do unspeakable things for every executive if I can get that. Like, please. And then as far as NPEs go, this is a Ruger LCR in 38. And doing it all over again, I would have gone with 327 again to stoke with a 32 watt cutter. The 6th round just makes a ton of sense to me, especially as we're talking an NPE gun where there's even more penalty to carrying a reload.
Next.
Well, my OG snub sent off a 642 to Don Williams. God, so long ago that this thing has its learner's permit to drive, custom front night sight, all the fancy trimmings, stippling, good grips, and it was regulated by Don to shoot the 158 grain plus P wad cutters. That would be the NPE. As much as I love my Wiley Clap GP100, they are beastly tanks. They are essentially a steel K-frame. L-frame. If I could get my hands, without having to sell my soul, to get one of the 315 night guards that Smith did. XS big dot front sight with cylinder and slide extreme duty rear.
Those were such cool guns.
God, nobody could get them. Every dealer I went to, we're not a high enough rated Smith & Wesson dealer to be able to offer those.
And they're like,
even my LE dealer couldn't get it.
They're like $1,200, $1,500 on Gunbroker now. They're fucking stupid expensive. Now, don't get the 45 because it pulls bullets, but the rest of them are dope.
And barring that, a Model 12 certainly wouldn't be bad either. If only Smith could bring those back. Or Ruger could possibly do a Security 6 Speed 6 sized LCR with 6 of 38 in it. Nice lightweight carry.
So funny you should mention that. I've said too much.
I put port serrations on your... Oh.
No, so in all seriousness, Ruger is actually very responsive to the consumer market. And it's why, I joke about it, but Ruger, if enough people say we want a 6-shot, 3-inch, 327 LCR, they'll fucking make it because they like money. And, it's not necessarily Tinkerbell clapping our hands, but Ruger likes money and they like to listen to people who want to spend money, which is why, that's why this gun, the 3-inch LCR, even exists, is because people wanted an updated Smith & Wesson kit gun that had a good trigger and they could just buy off the shelf and not have to fuck with. And Ruger was like, please take.
If that was the case, they really need to go and copy another one of Hamilton Bowen's creations and bring out the GP44 as a factory item.
Well, they gave you a fucking 10 mil. What else do you want?
No. The GP44. It is a Super Red Hawk action with the front snub nose trimmed off and a standard Red Hawk barrel. So it doesn't look like the massive, monstrous abortion that the typical Super Red Hawk is. But GP44, it looks like a standard Red Hawk until you pull off the grip and you're like, oh, a GP100 action.
Hang on, Googling Bowen GP44 right now. Google Images. Oh my.
Yeah, Matt, you want to make want to kill video for me and Caleb right now because we're having a minute.
Oh my.
Not safe for work.
I'm having the vapors over here, guys. My goodness.
And for the stupid amount of money you have to send Bowen to do one of those and 2 guns, because you got to have a Super Red Hawk or a Super Red Hawk Alaskan and the Donor Red Hawk to steal the barrel off of.
I have a comment on stupid custom revolvers after Chuck tells us about his favorite guns.
He did. He was going to talk about injury and preventative.
That's right.
So are we switching topics now?
Yes.
Okay. After we went to 9mm from, this is about 89, 90 time frame, I had a Smith & Wesson 5906, and I was all hung up on the idea that your backup should carry, you should be able to reload your backup with your ammo from your primary. So I ended up with a 6906 as an ankle gun, which is a Glock 19 size pistol. And then over the years, I had a variety of big ankle guns, Glock 26s, Glock 27s, things like that. I'm currently dealing with the fact that I've got no cartilage in my left knee. And knowing that what I know now, one of the things that the uber lightweight revolvers, let's say Smith & Wesson 642s and lighter, the LCR 38s are lighter, the Scandium 357s and a variety of other guns are lighter. I would have gone with something like that and stuck with that, and I probably wouldn't be all screwed up because of an excessively heavy ankle gun that I was carrying for backup. Tom Giddings has said a number of times that he believes an ankle gun should not be 1 pound in weight, that it's bad for you to be carrying that around all day. And Tom's a smart guy. And, back when I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof, I thought that was silly. And now I really wish that that had been advice that I had gotten in my 20s instead of, hearing about it 30 years into my job.
It makes perfect sense. I have tried to do the whole ankle gun bit, and the only gun I've ever been able to me, successfully conceal in a way that didn't feel like I was trying to do a Jane Fonda impersonation was the super lightweight wheel guns. There's a hilarious story of a Beretta flopping out of an ankle holster at a wedding that I was in no way involved with and wasn't there for, but hypothetically may have experienced.
Well, the lighter, it's a fact. I mean, it's physics. The lighter your ankle gun, if you have to do something like run or move or fight or whatever, the lighter your ankle gun, the less inertia it has. More likely it is to stay in the holster. My preferred ankle rig setup for J-frame snubbies, when I carry my 43C in it, which is the let's say the thing's 10 ounces. I forget exactly how much it is, but the little 8-shot 22 that I've got, I can turn the holster upside down with the thumb brake popped and shake the holster, and the gun doesn't come out. That makes me happy.
Let me tell you, when you're trying to do the Cupid shuffle and you don't have a super lightweight J-frame, there's a lot of fucking inertia on that gun, hypothetically.
Yeah, I've carried 6906s, Glock 27s, Glock 26s, a 640. I've carried stupid ankle guns. So yeah, I get it.
Caleb, something I kind of figured out. So I went to ankle carry the same time I went to ankle medical kit. And then I've since deleted the ankle carry because I lost weight and my wife wants me to dress like an adult. Having balance
Just wear Speedo.
So you're saying no more bell bottoms.
Yeah, no more bell bottoms. And her exact words were, I'm no longer allowed to look homeless. The balance there, having a comparable weight on each ankle really kind of helps balance out the gait to minimize a lot of that.
So you don't look like you're trying to do the stanky leg when you got. I need to chill out with these pop culture references. Hey, Matt, how many people do you think listen to PNS who know what the Cupid shuffle and the stanky leg are?
I have no idea, and I mean that.
So anyway, but to make a coherent point out of this, one of the problems with ankle carry with a revolver that Chuck has mentioned is you're not going to ankle carry a Ruger SP-101 because it weighs 1,000 pounds and you could use it to secure a small boat somewhere. And I'm certainly not going to ankle carry one of these enormous GP100s, but the 351 PD is great for that. And also, if you're someone who thinks fitness doesn't mean I'm going to fitness whole pizza into my mouth, revolvers are great for that because, Chuck's 43C or my 351 PD, these super lightweight guns. When the 351 fully loaded with 7 rounds of 22 Magnum still weighs less than an unloaded Glock 43, all right? And when you run and you're trying to carry that gun in anything other than a Hill People Gear chest bag, which is a great way of advertising that you should be shot in the back and have your gun stolen. If you're trying to run and you want to actually be low profile and you live... Okay, I shouldn't talk shit about Hill People Gear. Their chest bag is great. It's a fucking cool piece of kit, but I live in urban Miami. If I was running around with something like that, people would look at me like I was a goddamn Martian, all right? And I guarantee I would get to have a chat with my local Miami PD guys because the only people with HPG chest bags are people with fucking guns, all right? Nobody's running around with an HPG chest bag with, 3 Cliff Bars and some poop bags for their dog in there. They have a gun in it. That's what they've got. So
real quick on the HPG. So this is their Terra in, I forget what they call it, but it's a synthetic material instead of the normal 1,000 denier, 500 denier, whatever it is that they run. It looks like I'm a hippie and I bought this at REI. They make their kit bags in this. It's a limited run, and I want to say they do it in orange or something similar.
Something that doesn't have a sign on it that says, hey, I have a gun.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And
PT belt.
And the other side of that is if you buy the foliage, you can allegedly dye it some bright garish colors. Not that I did that to stop freaking out the hippies and the couples I keep catching doing naughty shit on trails, but
hey, don't hate. It's time to fornicate.
They're not the good looking ones.
Well, and it's just jealousy anyway. But you can tweak them a little bit. But continue.
So, and again, I'm not hating on HPG in by any means. They make fucking great shit. But it's one of those things where everyone's got everyone lives in a different world, lives in different environments, and if you're going for a jog in downtown Miami or in you're a cop in Los Angeles and you're going for a run or something like that where people don't carry guns if I was still in South Dakota, I'd fucking run in an HPG chest bag. No one gives a fuck. It's South Dakota. They're going to think you're a weirdo if you don't have a gun. But in Miami, I need something that I can carry in my running shorts, that I can keep concealed under a T-shirt in running gear, and I have yet to find a semi-automatic pistol that I can do that with. I can do it with a super lightweight revolver, but I can't with a pistol, because even with my running shorts drawn, circulation cutting off tight, the gun bounces too much.
Chuck?
Yes, Matt.
You have something?
Yeah, no, we weren't really advocating, and we were talking about that on Facebook previously. Like PNS does not advocate revolvers over semi-autos, etc. And I certainly, for the most part, like my duty gun's a Glock 17. Most of my concealed carry day-to-day base probably covered by a Glock 19. But as Pat famously said, however, for some of the jobs that we do, we were previously talking about ankle guns, MPE guns, as Caleb noted. The revolvers are lighter. I think they conceal better because the shape, there's roundness to the grip. Drawing your gun in NPE carry from some sort of deep cover, I believe the shape of the revolver lends itself to getting a master grip on the gun quicker and getting that gun clear of the concealing garments, particularly things like pocket carry, tucked in holsters at the waistband, things like that. Pocket carry, in my experience, revolvers trump semi-automatics, period, in every possible way in deploying the gun. In theory, semi-autos carry more bullets, you reload them faster, et cetera, et cetera. But the first thing you have to be able to do is get it clear of a concealing garment and get it deployed. And revolvers trump semi-autos in that area. I've also found there's a lot of small semi-automatics, and I'm not the only person that's noted this, that most of us go to the range, we'll unload our carry ammo, load our ball ammo, and then go do some shooting and then reload the gun. However, if we don't do that, if we pull the gun in the manner that it has been carried, and it has been carried for more than a couple weeks without being manipulated or cleaned or something like that, it is very common with these small semi-autos to get one round in a stovepipe. They have to be, I firmly believe that service size, let's say a Model 66 versus a Glock 17. Glock 17 is a more reliable gun, going to tolerate debris and abuse better. But the smaller the guns get, when we get into snubby revolvers and 380 automatics, small 9mm, stuff like that, I think that advantage switches to the snub revolver in many cases, that they are more likely to give you a gun that you are going to be able to expend all the ammunition in the gun without having an issue. Something I've noted in video, looking at videos of real world incidents, it is shockingly common for semi-automatic pistols to stovepipe or short stroke or otherwise have an issue. And it's far, far more common than people really appreciate. I believe it's far more common to have a stoppage than it is to need to reload. Actually being forced to reload is shockingly uncommon for people who haven't really looked at the problem or, at the history of this sort of thing. Anyway, I'm kind of going off on a soliloquy right there, so I'll let somebody else jump in.
Well, along that vein, I remember having conversations with Daryl Bolke and Wayne Dobbs, and as Daryl would always put it, the semi-auto is more tolerant of abuse, but the revolver is more tolerant of neglect.
I believe much more so. I'll be spending the weekend down in Dallas with both those guys, spending the whole weekend shooting nothing but snub revolvers. So that's what I'll be doing.
Wish I could go.
I'm driving down there tomorrow.
Are you going down to the Revolver roundup?
I am one of the keynote instructors.
Sometimes this whole job with the military is a real pain in the dick because I don't get to go do fun shit.
I think in general adulting is bullshit because it gets in the way of going to the range and things like that.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the Revolver roundup because something that Daryl has talked about a lot, and it's not exclusive to Revolver triggers, is a thinking trigger versus a shooting trigger. And it ties in with the whole concept of a gun that's difficult to negligently discharge. But when you're dealing with a revolver, and one of the things about a revolver is when I'm shooting a revolver as fast as I can, the fastest split I've ever gotten out of a wheel gun is probably 0.22, something in that area, which is a fucking quick split, right? I've gotten 1911s down to 0.15. I've gotten Berettas down to 0.17, and we're talking about fractional hundredths of a second here, which are not a lot, but at the same time, when you're talking about a 0.35 split or a 0.45 split versus a 0.2 split, that's a lot of time. That's the human reactionary time. It takes us 0.2, 0.3 seconds to react to visual stimuli. And if I'm shooting faster than I can react to those visual stimuli, I might be making bad choices with my gun and bad choices with my trigger. And this was something that 5 years ago, Caleb, I told, I'm pretty sure I told Daryl he was fucking dumb for this idea. And fast forward 5 years later, Caleb, I'm like, no, there's something to this idea of a thinking trigger versus a shooting trigger, and what you get in a revolver, and the idea of putting that in a gun with a person who is going to be minimally trained. And, a lot of law enforcement training programs are minimal training. The training that you get as a private civilian, if it's even required in your state, which some states aren't, is minimal amounts of training. So I think that there is merit to the idea of guns for people who aren't going to go get a lot of training that have thinking triggers versus shooting triggers.
I think there's something there even for people who get a lot of training.
Yeah, for sure.
I had an incident, force on force with Cecil Birch and Glenn Stilson of Immediate Action Combatives and Independence Training. Hint, hint, if you're in Arizona, go train with them. Doing a shoot house evolution towards the end of the day. I enter the room. The scenario is you've come home to an open front door. Your family members in the house, and handle it accordingly. Yeah. So kind of a scenario that gets you thinking from step one.
That's a Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah. So the typical stand outside, call the cops on your cell phone isn't really an option. I enter through a doorway, exchange a little bit of fire with the role player, and as I go to enter the room, I watch him send his last 2 rounds wide of me. I see his gun lock back at slide lock. I see him realize this and start to spin away to protect his face because I told him I was going to shoot him in the fucking face. And in the time that it took me to really process what I was seeing, I'd emptied all 5 rounds into him. Luckily, they were Sims. I didn't have to clean up blood.
Well, but also, to be fair, that motherfucker still had it coming.
Well, yeah, no, definitely in a real situation, that's a get the shovel out and handle what needs handled. But
that's still a good shoot, regardless.
Yeah, but the fact that I shot him in the back as he's spinning away.
That does look bad.
Not just looks bad. It is the time that it took for me to see all of this stuff. I saw it. Could have just as easily been somebody moving in the foreground, in the background. If you're at that 0.25, 0.3 split, there is something to be said for the increase in reaction time to shot. shot, or the increased awareness to shot.
Which I want to ask Chuck this because I think he might be able to verify this, and I don't. And the reason I'm asking, I also don't remember where I heard it, but I remember reading that. So LA Metro, LAPD SWAT is one of the. They actually have rigorous marksmanship standards, and I remember reading that the average split time that they train to is like a half a second, which to a competition shooter seems forever. But I'm not And the reason why I'm asking Chuck is I hope that he can verify that, or maybe he hasn't heard of it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I have heard of that, and you're supposed to be evaluating your shots. There's also the only time you can go cyclic on a target is if the target doesn't move. Think of a match where we could set up some sort of autonomous target that as you engaged it, it would take off either to the left or the right. Now, what would that do to your splits? If your guy is still up and dangerous, I can tell you when you're shooting them, they're not standing still for that shit. Like I say, the only time going cyclic really pays off is this stationary target that is not going to move. And I believe that is one of the reasons why LAPD SWAT, I have been told, trains to that standard. Some of the training I've done force on force with Strategos when we're doing like active shooter instructor and things like that, I've seen guys go high-speed trigger and hostages get shot, things like that, because you have a lot going on. There's a specific scenario we use in some of the Strategos training that I have seen the first time people face that, the hostage gets shot 100% of the time. That's a bad thing. That is not an optimal outcome.
Yeah, I remember at the no light class here in Houston with Daryl that he equated it to driving at night faster than your headlights can illuminate the road.
Mm-hmm. I've heard him use that same thing where you're outrunning your headlights.
So I got one last question for the panel on this, especially with everyone taking off. Lee?
On that, the individual you heard it from is currently affiliated with Gray Guns, who makes some outstanding modifications along the lines of everything we're talking about tonight. And if you run a SIG, you should definitely check them out.
Cha-ching!
Yeah.
So my last question, and I'm going to bracket this. For the most part, we've been talking about 38s, 22 Magnum, that type. For the most part, is that accurate? Ish. So with that in mind, is it accurate to say that with those types of calibers, ammo selection, should people be looking at a heavier full metal jacket versus a duty type jacket at hollow point?
Ooh, can I jump on that?
Please. That's why I'm asking, because you're here.
For 38s, and I'll get with snubby, jacket at hollow points often don't expand. I'd say if you're carrying a steel frame snub, something like 135 grain gold dot is worth looking at to see if it hits to your sights. In the airweight guns, I'm a big fan of gold metal match wad cutters or something equivalent. In 22s, things like that. In 22s, I haven't found any of the hollow points expand. My go-to for snubby ammo in the 22 long rifle is velocitors or CCI stingers. Beyond that, CCI mini mag hollow points, because the hollow points actually penetrate more than the round nose does, and in the gel testing I've done. And then Federal Auto Match and CCI solid points. In doing some gelatin testing with Tamer Keel, we found in the 32s, like the 32 H&R, things like that, from the 2-inch, none of the stuff we had expanded. So she's talking about semi-wad cutters or wad cutters for her guns that shoot the 32 caliber. Like I say, in 38 snubs, wad cutters cut a clean full caliber hole, whereas everything else makes a smaller hole because the ogive does not cut a full caliber hole. If you're getting into bigger guns, then you're picking ammo for a specific purpose. Revolvers in modern times for me are MPE guns, backup guns, or they are woods guns. 357 Magnum shooting something like a hard cast 180 grain at 1,200 feet per second will shoot completely through a bear or a moose. 44 Magnums, things like that you can do things with those guns that you cannot do with a semi-automatic pistol. And you can do so reliably. There's a lot of people will push things like 10 millimeter, stuff like that. I found you just don't have the feed reliability when you start hot rodding the rounds. So for some of what we do, Caleb talked about using them for training. I think a 22 revolver, like that 3-inch adjustable sighted LCR that Caleb's got in 22, superb training tool. But also for like a going to the woods gun, a 357 Magnum revolver will shoot 38 wad cutters. You can hunt rabbits with it. I've done it. And you can hunt deer with it. I've done it with the exact same gun because you can power the ammo up and down for the job at hand. You can't do that with a semi-auto pistol. So anyway, specifically to your question, I wouldn't go in 38 Special to Full Metal Jacket unless it was just the shit hot accurate shoots to my sights ammo and it was better than anything else out of my particular gun.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Chuck on that. For 38s, for guns that you're going to carry, my bias is it must shoot to the sights. Like that's priority number one, is it's got to hit where you're pointing the gun. Now, a way to sidetrack that is to carry a gun with adjustable sights, which is what I do with my 38 guns. So I can pick the load then. But even then, I end up carrying 148 grain Federal Gold Medal Match wad cutters because they have minimal recoil and they have adequate penetration. When we're dealing with these small guns with short barrels, the gun's got to hit what you're aiming at first and foremost, and the round's got to penetrate it deep enough to hit shit that matters, and everything else is angels dancing on the head of a pin as far as I'm concerned. With my 22 Magnum, I carry jacketed soft points because they shoot to the sights and they penetrate deep enough to hit shit that matters. And that's pretty much, there's not a real developed thought process in that beyond those two criteria. You're not going to find 100-page long forum discussions from me about defensive ammo. But the other stuff, the great utility of the wheel gun is, like Chuck said, with my GP100, I can shoot 148 grain Federal Gold Medal Match out of it and have just the softest shooting. If I was taking a new shooter to the range, someone who never fired a gun before, I would take my GP100 because it weighs 1,000 pounds, and I'd put Federal 148 grain Gold Medal Match in it and be like, shoot this. And they would get a little poop, and that would be it. And they would be like, wow, guns are fun. And then I can take that exact same gun and put a double tap 200 grain cast lead bullet in it at a jillion feet per second that'll shoot through 2 bears in a bus and take that into, go fight alligators down here in Miami and feel perfectly comfortable with my armament. And that's the great utility of the revolver. But for personal carry, the rounds that I carry, my 38s, I carry Federal Gold Medal Match wad cutters because they have soft primers. I get reliable ignition. They're gentle recoil, and they shoot to the sights on almost every gun. And in my 22s, I carry 22 Magnum, and I carry the jacketed soft points from the CCI mini mag jacketed soft point, not the jacketed hollow point, but the soft point round. And that's because they shoot to the sights and they penetrate.
So I've got something on this that I was hoping Chuck was going to get into because he's the one who turned me on to it, and I've got bullets handy to. So a fairly typical load for me is wad cutters with the 5th in a 5-shot or the 6th in a 6-shot round as one of these gold dots. for the recoil impulse difference, so you know you're empty. Chuck, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And that's been something I've adopted on the GP100. I would flip that around to gold dots at a 357 load. Something to kind of give you an indication you're dry, since you're not going to get a slide lock.
Yeah, I've been known to do that with like with my 642s, the old FBI load, 158 grain plus P lead semi wad cutter hollow point, which I typically didn't run in the gun because it kicks so damn much. But if it's the last round, I'm out of ammo, so my recovery from recoil is kind of moot. And it gave me a like you said, it gives me a hey, dumbass, you just fired your last shot. So yeah, that's something I'm still prone to doing sometimes.
Cool. Well, I understand we have a couple panelists that need to take off. Before they take off, Chuck, any closing remarks? Anything to plug? Where people can follow you?
My website's www.agiletactical.com. I recently, it was about a month ago, I was up at FPF training with John Murphy, did a revolver class. That went really well, except we got stormed off the range by, trees coming down and flooding and things like that. But people have talked about having me out again for that. Got Revolver Roundup this weekend. I'm pretty excited about that. But nobody wants to get typecast, but I'm finding there's very few guys that train revolvers anymore and do have any interest in it. And I think, as we've noted, woods guns, backup guns, NPE guns, things like that, I think there's still a place for it. So on demand, I do that kind of training. I'm looking forward to possibly having another couple of classes going in 2019 again.
Cool. Caleb?
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on the YouTubes where I tell people that you don't need guns for self-defense, that's my most recent video. You don't need a gun for self-defense, but you can follow me. It's youtube.com/gunnutsmedia. And then I do a lot of shit on Instagram at Radicaleb. That's a portmanteau. That's your dictionary word of the day, guys, portmanteau. It's radical and Caleb mashed into one word. So RADICALEB and then an underscore, because apparently I was the second dickhead to think of Radicaleb as an Instagram name. But check me out on Instagram. Follow me on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel. I do actually post good content out there. And if you're down in the Miami area, we're in the process of slowly standing up Miami gun training, where we're going to offer local classes, stuff like that down here. We're going to do a twist on the Florida concealed carry class that actually requires you to not suck to get your permit. So I don't imagine it will be commercially successful, but I'll feel good about myself for doing it. But other than that, yeah, I love talking, and I love talking about wheel guns. So if you DM me on Instagram with your dumb wheel gun question, I will probably answer it.
Hey, Caleb, before you go, I've got a question. What's your transfer fee for High Points, Lorsons, and
I don't do that shit anymore. I'm out of the retail gun business because I was gonna probably catch a case for choking someone to death.
And I was going to say, if anyone likes Caleb's shirt, it's the same one he's wearing in the "You Don't Need a Gun for Self-Defense" video.
And that almost video, like I filmed that today.
Just today. Weird. And that video is only 9 minutes and 19 seconds.
It's perfect. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. Brandon, what you got?
Well, I can't argue with anything Chuck had to say.
Anything to promote?
My ammo ones, like anything to promote?
Yeah.
Hell, Wayne and Daryl do good classes. Their Revolver Roundup, I'm sure, will be outstanding. If I wasn't going to be in TC3 this month, that would be where I'd be at. Dark Star gear for holsters. They probably have about the best Kydex snub holster I've played with. Barring that, though, and I know most guys don't do leather. Good old Lefty Lewis over at Bell Charter Oaks still does a nice rig. This countless miles when I was hurt and couldn't go to the mailbox without having a pistol on me. Everywhere I went, everywhere.
Instagram?
Hizzy Biscuits. Hizzy_biscuits. Revolvers, AKs, med stuff.
All the unpopular stuff.
Yeah, well, it's just what I enjoy. It's not all about. That's actually all it's about is what I enjoy. Meathead. I like the gym. I like AKs. I like wheel guns.
Cool. Lee?
The Obscene Sailor on Facebook. You're going to get to see a bunch of this content tomorrow, as I just scheduled a post before I jumped on here about processing time and triggers. So if you want a little bit more in that, or you want to easily share a format of that, check it out. I want to say before we sign off, there's still the three of us here, and Chuck's going to disappear any second now. Let's talk about the judge.
Okay.
I've shot.
No. Just no.
Yeah. So what's there to talk about? There should be no discussion.
I know that, but fucking somebody's going to get pissed that we didn't talk about it, and why it sucks, and why it's retarded, and a bunch of other shit.
Well, one, it's a Taurus.
Having shot one, it's a Taurus. It's 3 pounds too light for what it is. It's the inverse of the Wiley Clap GP100. And the ammo that actually hits more than 1 to 2 pellets in the kind of shot group we're looking for, it doesn't fucking penetrate. I threw more rounds than my hands should have let me through. My dad's got one because he's an idiot. They are the worst gun in the world to shoot. I would take full house 357s in a J-frame over shooting a judge. And I just couldn't get hits on target. Consistently, you would maybe get one, if that. And because a lot of those loads have buffer material in them, either small shot or similar, you would get this really nice looking group on paper, but it was all buffer material. And like no shit rounds that I think are going to begin to hit calibrated FBI ballistics gel tests. Nothing was giving me consistent groups. And I'm not even worried about hostage shots, just consistent hits on target. And that was all at 7 yards. So not like I'm pushing the distance at all.
So not even suitable to shoot at the snakes in the grass. Because you'll miss.
I would
the CCI loads do better than that out of 44.
I would single action 45 long Colt out of a judge for snakes in the grass before I would try and use anything else for it.
And Chuck has 3 of them. Well, then, good discussion. And I think this is another one of those episodes where people are going to maintain their bias. They're not going to bother watching, listening, or whatever. And we have these great panelists, these great discussions. We can cover a lot of ground and a lot of topics. It's here. It's free. But nah. Oh, well. Big thanks to our sponsor, Facts on Firearms. If you go to facsonfirearms.com, you can select from an assortment of pistol barrels, rifle barrels, you name it. Parts. Good stuff. Also, filsterholsters.com. Some very innovative things are going on with Filster. If you're looking for options to carry medical, they have it. If you're looking to upgrade and enhance your appendix carry, they have it. It's called the Flex. John's a great guy. He has some great great insights on design, and it's really fun to pick his brain about it and to work with him on projects. That's all I can say. You can find us at primaryandsecondary.com. We have a website. We have a forum. We have Instagram. Let's see here. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, Vimeo. We are also on Patreon. Big thank you to our Patreon subscribers. Your support helps this keep on moving. Go into patreon.com/primary and secondary. You can get in on, if you're a subscriber, you can get in on the closed modcasts where they're Patreon subscriber only. We do a lot more interaction with the viewers. There are giveaways. There are various tiers of benefits. And as I said at the beginning of the show, I have some angry members that spend more money than they intend because of the discounts that they have. Sorry. But yeah, it has been very cool to put together this type of a group of people. And recently spoke to some potential advertisers with us and to talk about what they're observing. It's really cool. I just love to be able to have this type of a positive influence. Next week on next Thursday at 2000 hours Eastern time, someone complained that I did it usually in Mountain because that's where I am and it's easier for me to track because I'm old. We're going to basically be having an episode called Be the Grassroots. It's a pro-gun discussion about activism. We have a wonderful panel for this. This is something that is probably should always be discussed, always something that should be at least thought about because our rights are always potentially in danger. So I believe that is it. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. For some reason, I'm thinking that I'm forgetting something, but I don't think that's the case. So I'm just going to stop that right now. And I'm going to kill the audio feed now, but keep YouTube going because that's what I do. So until then, I'll talk to you later.